Hello, hello. Welcome, leaders. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to be with you today and share this information and give you some opportunities to make some really immediate and practical changes in how you're doing what you're doing. So, I see several of you are still joining. We have people joining today on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. I'm going to do my best. Now, if you are on LinkedIn or YouTube, I know that I'll be able to see your comments immediately and respond to them. So if you want to be more interactive, I invite you to click one of the links to go there. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. Now, let me see. Hi there. Hi, Modesta. Yeah, please take a quick second. Just let me know that you're here. Say hello. I want to make sure everybody can hear me and see me as expected. There's something strange going on with my lighting, so I'm not sure what's causing this, but it seems a little darker than usual to me. I'm not sure how that looks for you guys. But either way, I hope you can see what's important and what we're going to be talking about today. So, for those of you who don't know me, let me just very, very briefly introduce myself. My name is Bribiesca-Hedin. I'm the CEO of Bridgewell Professional Services. And really how I spend my time and my attention and my intention is on creating opportunities for accomplished professionals to become influential, sought-after leaders, but without overworking, people-pleasing, and selling their souls, because I'm confident that there's already more than a fair share of that going on. So today, I wanted to talk about creating influence and making your work count now. And I know I prefaced this and it made it a focus on Gen X. And I did that, somewhat selfishly, I guess, if it's fair to say that, because I am a Gen Xer, and there is no shortage of articles and conversations around Gen X being the forgotten generation. Has anybody heard that? You guys tell me, what else have you guys been hearing or seeing about Gen X, or not hearing and not seeing about Gen X? But what else have you guys been hearing about Gen X? Because I hear the forgotten generation. I've heard, I just saw this, I think yesterday. I heard the middle child. Has anybody heard that? That we are like the middle child of the generations. It's really funny because I think I even in one of the same articles I was reading yesterday as I was thinking about today's conversation was, definitely skipped over Angela, right? So definitely skipped over. But one of the comments I read was that we were the slackers. And I was like, through what lens would you need to be looking to believe that the folks who basically brought every type of technology that we use today to fruition, to households, to everyday, what lens would you need to be looking through to actually believe that we were slackers, right? Isn't that insane? That we were absolutely, the lost and forgotten generation. Yeah, it doesn't matter that we created, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, every mode of communication, every modern mode of transportation. It's amazing to me. We've done amazing things. And this isn't, so obviously I can go on about this because I have a personal vested interest in us not being the forgotten generation. But this is a much bigger conversation, yes? Because we've all been in situations and circumstances where we have literally worked our behinds off, yes? Or we have knocked it out of the park. But somehow it either, one of two things, it either isn't packing the punch it used to pack. Yeah, it isn't packing a punch, or it's completely overlooked and dismissed. And so what we used to do and what used to work and what used to create and open doors for us, create opportunities, give us job offers, just dropping into our LinkedIn, maybe isn't happening anymore. And this is absolutely by no stretch of the imagination, not limited to Gen Xers. But I was very specific about focusing on Gen X because I think that this is also a shared experience, right, among Gen Xers. And maybe it's for everybody, right? And you guys definitely tell me in the chat. Maybe it's for everybody. But that experience of feeling like you're doing all the right things, you're knocking it out of the park, and yet you're not being recognized. Yep, that's right, Hajnal. Not being recognized for your contributions, for your accomplishments, not being given the opportunities you're probably not only qualified for, but well overqualified for. It is a shared experience. And so I wanted to have the conversation kind of through that lens. And yeah, it unfortunately, it is chronic right now. But here's the thing. There are things we do when circumstances aren't going according to plan, when we're not getting the results we wanted to get, that simply don't work. And we need to cut that out. Okay, we need to cut that out. There are things that we do that don't work. And all they do is lead us to burnout and frustration and selling out and all the other things. And we're going to talk about that today. But, this is going to be a good conversation because at a minimum, it's going to spark some ideas about how you might be seeing and thinking forward to your next steps. Okay, so I am going to, let me see if this actually, oh, good. You guys can actually see my pointer. Last time we did this, we couldn't see my pointer, which was rather challenging for some of the slides. So here is what, for those of you who signed up in advance, you either got my emails or my invitation here on LinkedIn or one of the other social media sites, you might have responded to this. And so today's promise, right? That was that in these 90 minutes in this masterclass, we're going to break down exactly what you need to do to ensure that you are doing the right work, not just more work, that you understand how to be more strategic about what you keep and what you delegate or simply cross off the list. Discover how to create an influence plan. I'm going to touch on that briefly because that's one of the things we do in my program, but I want to tell you why that's so important. And also the importance of aligning yourself and your teams to better prioritize your effort. I know we talk about alignment, we talk about cascading. This is a little bit different. And then finally, how to make your contributions and accomplishments count so that they are noticed. Now, how many of you guys were here for the 5-day leadership bootcamp that I did in December? Are any of you here for the 5-day leadership bootcamp? Drop me a quick note in the chat and let me know if you were at the 5-day free strategic leadership bootcamp, where we focused on kind of getting the promotion, advancing your career. Let me know. And if you were, some of this is going to be familiar, but I'm actually going a few steps deeper. So let me see if I can remove that. So let's get started. Okay, so I see a lot of you. I see altruistic empowerment. Hey there, Angela. Let's see, Amy attended. Constance, you weren't there, but that's okay. You'll get everything that you need. You'll walk away. LinkedIn user, I can't see your name, but thank you. Glad you were there. Carol, excellent. Welcome back. So welcome back to everyone who was there last month for the 5-day Strategic Leadership Bootcamp. There was a lot of information, and today it's going to be a lot of information, but it's going to be condensed into this 90-minute session. So let's keep going. Let me bring, did I just lose the screen? There we go. Okay. So, I just, for a quick pulse check, we're all obviously at different places, facing different circumstances, opportunities, and challenges. But do me a quick favor and drop in the chat just a quick phrase or notes or a few words about what you're hoping to get out of today's conversation. What are you hoping to get out of today's conversation, right? I shared for a moment what, here we go, today's promise was. So some of you responded to this, but often folks show up with a very specific focus. You want to understand, how to get unstuck, why what you're doing isn't landing, how to not run screaming from the building every time that somebody does a certain thing, or every time you feel overlooked, or whatever the case is. So drop me a chat so that I message in the chat so I can go back and actually reference that as we go. And I'm going to continue as you guys are doing that. And here are 3 things that I want to focus on. I want to focus on what it is that accomplished professionals do. I want to talk about why it's not working, and then I want to talk about what to do instead, starting right now. Okay? So what we do, why it's not working, and what to do instead, starting right now. And let me see. I see some of your comments, so keep them coming. What are some of your objectives for today's conversation? What do you want to leave today's conversation with or equipped to do? Okay, what do you want to leave equipped to do? Because we're going to hit as much as we can. As you guys know, I don't hold anything back for my paid programs. I give you everything that I can during the time we have. So I want to start with what accomplished professionals do. What is it that accomplished professionals do? And I want to tell you what I see. Oftentimes, and I alluded to this earlier, when we're not seeing the results that we want to be seeing, when we feel like we're not being acknowledged, when we feel like our work is being overlooked, there are a couple of directions we might go. One very common direction is to double down and decide you're going to work extra hard, extra long, say yes to all, do all the things, try all the things, and see what works. Okay, does that sound familiar to anybody? If that sounds familiar, give me a yes. So essentially, right, that strategy in response to things not going according to plan, not getting the acknowledgement you'd expected, not having the opportunities that you're reasonably confident you'd earned, is actually to double down and to work harder, longer, etc. So go ahead and let me know. Yeah, I see some yeses in the chat. And so, and again, I want to preface this with, I'm going to share some information that as we go and you look back, you're going to think, oh, of course. And a part of you is going to want to go to making yourself wrong and kind of punishing yourself for not having already known it. So I want you to take this conversation on as a know better, do better. All right, that's all. All we can do is the best with what we have or what we know, period. Yes, that's it. So I just want to preface that so that you don't go to focusing and fixating on, which is another thing we do that you all know I love to talk about, fixating on failures or things that didn't work and how frustrating we are and all those things. I want you to focus on know better, do better. Then that's how you're going to get the most out of this conversation. So we talked about, let's see. So Tracy, I see you. I feel like I'm doing the wrong things to get ahead in my career, and I'm not sure how to get off the merry-go-round I've been on for years. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else feel like they don't know how to get off that blessed merry-go-round? So this is it's a common, again, a shared experience. But some of the things that we go to, again, as I mentioned, is the overworking. Overworking doesn't work. Okay, overworking does not work. And I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but overworking is a reaction, right, to things not looking the way you want them to. It is not a strategic decision. Overworking is a reaction, as is people pleasing, right? People pleasing, saying yes to all, is a reaction. Reactions do not move you towards your goal. They keep you fixated on what's not working. Okay, so I want you to really think about that. Reactions do not move you towards your goal. What else do we do? We say yes to all. The other thing we do is we try all the things. Well, let me just go ahead and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other thing. I'm going to try all these different strategies and I'm going to see what sticks. But let me tell you something. The only thing that comes from throwing more spaghetti at a wall is a dirtier wall. So stop throwing spaghetti at the wall. I don't know who came up with that notion, But the more I think about it, the more just wrong and backwards it is. Do not throw spaghetti at the wall. Why in the world? And yet we repeat that as though it's sage career advice, right? As though it's going to actually help something. Don't just do more of everything. That's not how that works. Doing more of everything gives you more of what you already have, which it sounds like is probably frustrated intentions, unfulfilled results and desires, goals that aren't being met. So doing more of what you're already doing without having some sort of intentional and intelligent assessment process in the middle is not actually going to get you what you're looking for. The other thing that I see accomplished professionals do, and you guys, I have a feeling that this is, in addition to the yes to all, I have a feeling that this, a lot of you are going to resonate with, because the folks who would be here, spending their lunchtime or some part of their day on a conversation about building influence and making their work count are going to be in this space. But the other thing that we like to do is collect credentials. Who is in that boat? Who goes out there and when things aren't going according to plan, you start looking around and thinking, okay, well, what other certification should I be getting? What else do I need to get a degree in? Should I go back and get my PhD? Should I just change lanes? Now, look, asking all of those questions is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with asking those questions and being in that space. And yeah, I hear you. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with being in that space. However, I want you to understand that that's also a reaction. That is also a reaction. A reaction does not move you towards your goal. It stays stuck in being a response and a swirl and a spin around what's not working. So that is not the direction to go in. Stop collecting credentials. Stop trying to add letters to the back of your name. Now, here's the thing. I want to make sure that you guys really hear me. If you've been with me before, you know I'm huge on us going after accomplishments that are meaningful to us. Yeah, I'm big on that because I think it's so much fun to do something that we think is hard or maybe even out of our limits, and yet we're going after it anyway. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and we all need to be up to big things that actually scare us a little. That's how we grow. But there is a big difference between going after big things because they're worthy of you pursuing them and making it happen and bringing it to fruition. And there's a difference between that and then going after big things because you want to prove that you're worthy of having accomplished them. Give me a quick yes in the chat if that resonates. I want to make sure you guys understand this distinction. Going after accomplishments that mean something is absolutely fantastic. Going after accomplishments to prove that you're worthy of something or that you're good enough, no. That is not the direction we're trying to go here. So we need to cut that out. I'm not saying drop your PhD program. I'm not saying, don't go after the certification. I'm saying get really clear and really honest. Get really clear and really honest about why you're going after it. It is not, I repeat, it is not actually going to make you feel worthy. Because here's what happens. And this is actually at the crux of imposter syndrome, which we're not really talking about today, but I feel like it's important to put this out there. Right? That, with imposter syndrome, the experience that we have is one of not actually deserving what we already have. Right? Now, how messed up is that? You already have it, you already accomplished it, and yet you feel like a fraud and like you don't deserve it. And so often what that experience does, and I hate to call it imposter syndrome because I think it's a shared experience again. It's not unique. Nothing has necessarily gone wrong. But when you're in that space and you go and pursue another credential, or you stand there and you do the superhero stance to feel more confident, then what happens? You show up on the other side of it and you're like, oh, shoot. I don't feel more confident. I don't feel better equipped. I don't feel more worthy. And that's a problem, because then what you do is your brain, and our brains, bless them, it starts to create this story and this swirl for you, right? To explain why you don't feel more confident or more worthy. And it starts to explain to you that it's because you're even more messed up than everybody else. You're even more messed up than everybody else, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to pursue credentials, pursue degrees, release papers, write books, do things in order to feel worthy. Because doing more things in order to feel worthy and seen, that it's kind of like, and you guys have heard me say this before, dropping your keys in the garage. That's kind of messy and dark, and there's the cobwebs in there in that corner, and looking for them in the driveway because it's more comfortable and convenient. That is not where you're going to find what you're looking for. That is not where you're going to find it. So we need to stop doing things in order to feel a different way inside. We need to stop people pleasing in order to feel like we're valuable. We need to stop looking around the room to see everybody's smiling back at us and giving us high fives and thumbs up in order to feel like we belong. And again, I want to get us back on track, because I feel very strongly about this, but I want you to understand how significant it is when we're going with our default and not making high quality decisions. And that's what we're going to be talking about today as well. So let's keep going. We already talked about some of what accomplished professionals do, and you guys can keep throwing things in the chat, right? The unfortunate part is that whatever those things are that you decide to do more of or do less of, right? Because sometimes it's a backlash. So I said sometimes you do more, but the other side of it, and again, give me if this sounds familiar, drop me a familiar in the chat so I know what you guys are talking about. But as opposed to doing more, right? As opposed to doing more, and yeah, as Tracy says here, trying to make yourself more useful, right? And yet nobody seems to notice. So again, it makes you feel even more invisible and like it's even more impossible. But in any case, what some people go to is actually doing less, because you decide that, well, if I'm not being acknowledged, if I'm not being recognized, then I'm just going to throttle my contributions. I'm going to pull back. Maybe I'm going to keep my head down. Maybe I'm going to play small. I'm going to hold out on my best because they don't deserve my best. Does that sound familiar? Let me know in the chat if you recognize that conversation. Maybe you don't want to out yourself, and I get that, but you can just give me a yes. If that sounds at all familiar, and it can be you today or it can be you a long time ago. All I'm saying is it's a natural human reaction to want to hold back and feel like, why am I investing my best when it's being overlooked and set aside and discounted, right? Overlooked, set aside, and discounted. But here's what it is. Holding back and feeling like, ooh, I got them. It's a booby prize. And you know why it's a booby prize? Because when we hold back and throttle our contributions, we actually disconnect from our highest ability to contribute. So think about that for a second. When you play small for too long, you forget that you're playing. Let me know if that lands. But if you play small for too long, you forget that you're playing. And you start to hold back everywhere. You start to second guess everything. You start to talk yourself out of opportunities all the time. You decide instead that safety is the path to pursue. And I want to tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. So I'm going to talk about two drivers today, two primary outcome drivers. Now, you'll hear more about how I develop leaders later on and how we create better results, more intentional and strategic results without actually working more, right? By simply, everybody says work smarter. And then you got to ask, well, what are you talking about? So we're going to be very deliberate about what that means. Okay. But these are, I went a little too fast. Oh, there we go. These are the two primary outcome drivers we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about enterprise strategy alignment. And what that means is how well aligned your work and your relationships are to what's actually important to your organization, to your industry, or to your individual goals. Okay. So that is one side of the coin in terms of those outcomes of yours. And the other side is high quality decision making. And it's essentially how often and how regularly are you making decisions that are intentional and strategic versus reactive, right? Everything we've talked about so far is about being reactive. So how much time do you spend in high quality decision mode versus in low quality decision mode, which is typically just being in reaction mode. So, and what's important about this is that it impacts all of your results, right? Your career mobility, which is how I introduced it last month during the boot camp, your professional growth, your ability to contribute, your job satisfaction, right? Your satisfaction with your professional results, the success that you see, however it is that you just define success, this absolutely applies. You cannot, I don't believe. I want you to try though, but I don't think you can give me an example of where this is not accurate. So when we get to the end, I want you to think really hard, because if there is an exception, I want to know so that I can let people know, hey, this is an exception. There is no place where focusing on intentional strategic alignment and high quality decision-making won't positively impact your results. No place that I have seen yet. No situation, no circumstance, nothing. No place that I have seen yet, right? Assuming that you're not in just absolute survival mode, but even then you want to be making high quality decisions. But again, that's a different conversation. If you're sitting here joining me for a mastermind session in the middle of the week by choice, odds are there's a very good likelihood you are not in that survival mode situation. So let's keep going. Now, I'm going to start with high quality decision making. And that is because the quality of your thinking matters. The quality of your thinking is paramount to the results that you're going to get, to the opportunities you're going to see open up, to the options that you even see as available paths. And you'll understand more why in a moment. Again, if you've been with me for a while, you've seen the decision driver journey, but I want to make sure that everyone here, whether it's your first time or your 10th time, understands how this works. But the one fatal flaw, right, what accomplished professionals do is spend more time reacting to the environment instead of strategizing towards results. That is a fatal flaw. And what's important, and what I want you to understand, is that, as we talked about earlier, that overworking, that people pleasing, that collecting credentials, the hiding, the playing small, the pretending, none of that. Those are not strategies. Those are just reactions. So I want to tell you why that happens, why some of those things happen. And so I created this decision driver journey. It's a model I designed and continue to build upon and incorporate into the work we do, because it really helps distinguish why we do what we do, even if it feels completely backwards and takes us farther away from what we say is important versus bringing us closer to what we say is important. Okay. So the decision driver journey, I've broken it up across 3 dimensions. There's a leader experience on the left. There's your focus, or where most of your cognitive brilliance and your mental energy is going. And then there's the decision driver, what's actually driving your decisions in that moment. So I'm going to start at the bottom. At the bottom, this is what I refer to as the concerned citizen. Now, the concerned citizen has probably had some rough days. So the concerned citizen is probably coming out of a bad spell at work, an extended period of people pleasing, and yet having it not land, of trying really, really, really hard and maybe burning out, of being actually, offensively set aside and told maybe by somebody that they believe they should trust in that they need to stay where they are, or that, they're not as good as they think they are, or that they're just plain awful, right? However you want to look at that. There are an abundance of people in our lives who are willing to tell us how awful we are. Yes. And that is their right. And it's also none of your business. That's a whole other conversation. Other people's critique of you is a better reflection and representation of what's going on in your head than what's happening there where you are. So I want to make sure that you understand that. But going back to the decision driver journey, the concerned citizen, their experience is one of fear. It's one of anxiety. It's one of constant worry. And all they want to do is hide, right? So their decision driver over here on the other side is loss avoidance, self-preservation, and survival, right? Often just professional survival or social survival. Their entire focus is on themselves. And their biggest question is, how can I keep myself safe? How can I keep myself out of the crosshairs of, whoever or whatever it is they think is making them feel at risk? The problem is that when you're in this space, everything looks like a risk. And so I want you to think back for a moment, right? Let's put this to the test. The last time that you made a decision out of fear, did it actually have you feel more safe after the decision was made and after that action was taken? Did you actually feel more safe? I want to pause here for a moment because I really want you guys to reflect on this. Look at your life, look at your professional career, look at your personal relationships. I want you to think back of the last time you made a decision out of fear. Did it actually result in feeling more safe? Even though, of course, that's the reason you're making that decision. Did it actually result in feeling more safe? Go ahead and drop me a note in the chat and let me know. A yes or a no is fine. Did you feel more safe after making a decision out of fear? Now, for most people, I think I'm starting to see your comments come through the chat, but for most people, that is a no. And in fact, I've yet to see people say that they felt more safe, but I'm holding out because I suspect that somewhere in there, somebody's going to say, yeah, I did. And this is how. And I'll tell you briefly. One person did give me an example, but it was a little bit different. I'll give you guys that example in a second. This is being recorded, Stacy. You're good. Don't worry. This is recorded. It's here whatever platform you're watching it on. There will probably be a recording there, or make sure you're on my list and you'll get the replay link. And let me see. And for some people, it's temporary, right? You temporarily feel safer. And what I mean by that is, let's just say, I'm using this as an example. I don't know if this is what you mean, Myra, right? But I'm using this as an example. That might be that you actually have something contribute at the team meeting, at the department meeting, at the strategy session. But you're so afraid that somebody is going to call it or you stupid that you put your hand back down. And so you temporarily feel safer, right? You didn't put anything at risk. You didn't put your ego at risk. You didn't put your ideas at risk. You didn't put anybody's judgment on you at risk. But the reality is that it really does not. It does not have you feel safer. And here's why. Let me tell you why, right? This is not just something that I'm making up. Oh, Angela, you got it. it actually brings up more fear. Because what happens when our brains start to tune into like all of the risks in the environment, which is actually what happens when we actually put our hand back down and decide to play safe. It's almost like we then normalize that extra safety as the minimum level of safety. And then that next time we don't say no, or maybe we don't even turn our cameras on for the meeting, we now normalize that level of safety as just the basic standard level of safety. And then we go on and on. Can you guys see how this kind of cascades and how all of a sudden what started with simply pulling back in one way because you felt at risk has you finding risk everywhere, coming from everyone and from everything. So making decisions out of fear does not actually make you feel more safe. This is important to know if you want to make high quality decisions. And in fact, what I invite you to do is that if you are feeling filled with fear, I want to invite you to sit back for a moment and actually start to distinguish what's going on there. And I say that, I use those words specifically, distinguish what's going on, because when you're feeling anxious, and I don't mean excited, but I mean when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling scared, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling dismissed, like all of these kind of feelings that we would typically say don't feel good, there is a good chance that the quality of your thinking is compromised. So listen and look for when you feel scared, angry, agitated, defensive. You're going to believe that you're making good decisions and that your thinking is not compromised. But the fact of the matter is the quality of your thinking is compromised. And I'm going to prove it to you in a second. How many of you, and I usually use this so you guys know where I'm going with this. How many of you have heard of the notion of drinking and dialing? Anybody heard of the notion of drinking and dialing? So drinking and dialing, for those of you who don't know, is when you've had a glass or two of your, Chardonnay, and now you're feeling a little more courageous, or so you think. You're like, now is the perfect time to send my boss or my least favorite client or that obnoxious team member or employee that email and tell them exactly how I feel about them. Except with drinking and dialing, you do it on the phone, right? But now we're more likely to do it via text. In the moment, you believe that it's just your courage speaking, that you're finally about to say what needs to be said, and you're excited about it. But you only think that because the quality of your thinking is compromised. And so you go forward and you make that awful call, you send the awful text or email, you make the ridiculous purchase, and then the next day you're like, what was I thinking? That is just an example of the quality of your thinking being compromised, but you not being able to catch it. Since you can't see the quality of your thinking and can't always tune right into it, that's why I invite you to actually tune into how you're feeling, because how you're feeling is a really great barometer for the quality of your thinking. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that because we have a lot to cover. But I hope that piece was helpful and at a minimum helps you understand why making decisions out of fear actually keeps you in low quality thinking. Okay, making decisions out of fear keeps you in low quality thinking. Now we're going to go up to the next one. And this is where our focus is our image and our ego. And here, I refer to this as a self-conscious careerist, and this is probably the closest we have to a default in today's society. And here, a lot of our time and attention is spent in our heads, wondering what other people are doing or thinking about us, wondering how to make them do or think something different about us. And often that's, just so that then we can feel better about us. But the decision driver here is really around validation and looking good and saving face. Okay, validation, looking good, saving face, having the right word, being right, looking right, one-upping somebody. It's coming from that, not that positive place of competition, but from that other, that back of the hand of competition, that dark place of competition where it's about, for me to win, you have to lose. For you to win, I have to lose. So by all means, I got to make sure that you don't win. Okay, but when you're in this space and making decisions out of image and ego, you lose the opportunity to tune into what's really going on because we're just too tuned into and focused on, what did that raised eyebrow mean? What did that smile mean? I wonder why they asked me that question. Are they trying to call me out? So instead of being in the conversation and bringing your brilliance to the topic at hand, you're using all your precious brilliance and brain power, right? Thinking about what's happening in your head and what other people might be thinking about you. It's a lose-lose. You not only gave up the opportunity to contribute, but you gave up the opportunity to be with the real conversation at hand, which, just a spoiler, is one of those things that builds your influence. It's one of those avenues to building influence, being in conversations that actually matter. And we're going to talk about that more as well, and you'll understand how that works. But I want you to understand this focus on image and ego. This place, the one we're talking about now, image and ego, is also where we go to collect credentials, right? That's where we react and we decide to collect credentials or get another degree or whatever the case is. That is where we don't want to allow other people to provide input or to help us because we're afraid if they look good, then we won't look as good, right? That's where we're not willing to share our brilliance or allow others to contribute and be a part of the solution because we want to be the star, right? And we are spending most of our time trying to collect gold stickers and gold stars, just like we did when we were little kids, right? And when you turned in certain assignments or got scores. Did you guys have that in your classrooms? There's like a wall with the names, and then the teacher would put certain stickers next to it so everyone can see who is at the top of the list, who's at the bottom, and you could want to earn more stars. Now, that might have worked as a child, but let me tell you, as an adult, that's not always effective and has us go to low quality thinking instead of high quality thinking, right? So we're going to go on because now, of course, this is where everybody wants to be, right? Where everybody wants to be is up here being the career CEO or chief strategist. And this is where I like to spend our time in my programs so that you don't get the booby prize of investing and trying to get the gold sticker. And let me give you a quick example. So one of my clients, and I don't know if she's on the session today because I can't see all of your names at once, but she's absolutely fabulous. She wanted to be a management consulting, was already in a consulting firm, but she wasn't working in a direct client consulting role. She was working in more of a supporting role, making sure that things were working in the background. And she was really good at that as well. The challenge with it was, and this is, I want you guys to hear me, is not everyone is trying to catch you winning. Okay? Not everyone is trying to catch you winning. Sometimes, and you guys might have seen me post about this recently, your spirit, your way of showing up, your contributions, especially if somebody is down here, grates on their demons. It grates on their, like it exacerbates their doubts about themselves. So not everyone is trying to catch you winning or capable of catching you winning. And this is important to know because she was investing all of her time in just contributing fantastic ideas, fantastic, client-facing support opportunities, fantastic opportunities for the teams to work together and to make the work, the client service delivery more efficient and more effective and more satisfying for clients. Idea after idea, it kept getting set aside. And in addition to feeling, of course, incredibly angry and somewhat defensive and frustrated, it kept her fixating on what else do I need to do to make them finally see me. Now, the biggest gift she could give to herself was to go from being in this middle space, because that's where you're trying to get them to see you, right? It's your image and your ego that's at play there, to go to that higher place. So then we shifted the conversation from trying to get approval from the boss to, well, what's actually most important to you? If you're saying that what you want is to be a management consultant and to actually be in the client-facing, client consulting part of the organization, then what other avenues do you have to get there? Immediately, she started attending networking events. She started requesting meet and greets. And I do not exaggerate, within, I think, probably a month of starting that, she started having invitations to interviews. And then, of course, within a couple of months, she landed the role and is a management consultant, moved across the country, from Boston out here to Northern California, and is doing great things as a management consultant. But I bring that up because all of her brilliance was being funneled to thinking about, how can I get them to finally see me? Instead of thinking about, what is it I'm trying to accomplish for myself here? And we're going to talk more about that as well. But I want you guys to see the difference here, because in one, you're driven by conviction to purpose. And in this case, her purpose in terms of that client I was talking about was, I want to be a management consultant. I want to contribute at this level. I want to get this role. I want to do this type of work. And that was the purpose. And so it allowed her the opportunity to operate from space of clarity and confidence, because she was no longer, kind of beholden to whether her boss liked what she did or gave her a thumbs up when she brought the extra work and was willing to contribute and support the team at the higher level. It was no longer about getting the atta girl. You guys see the difference? Anyway, I'm going to go on because, again, we still have more, quite a bit more to cover. But I want you guys to understand the decision driver journey, because the quality of your thinking matters. Now, we addressed this piece, and now we want to go to enterprise strategy alignment. And thank you, Morgan. Yes, I'm glad it resonates. And yet, amazing ideas ignored. Somebody shared something last night, and I almost reshared it, and then I think I got distracted, but shared something last night. I think it was on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And it was something like, it was a basketball player, like a well-known athlete, who said, at the supermarket, a bottle of water costs 25 cents or 50 cents, right? When you, let's say, are at a restaurant, the bottle of water might cost $2 or $3. When you're at the movie theater, it might cost $6. And if you happen to be at Disneyland or an amusement park, and I'm using my own examples, it might cost $10 or $15, right? If you're at a concert, it might cost $10 or $15. See, it's the same bottle of water, but some environments are willing to value it at a much higher level. You guys with me? I love that so much. I'd actually just have to write about that in and of itself. Same bottle of water, same brilliant individual, same capacity for contributing fantastic ideas, but in a different environment, her contributions were valued at a much higher level. Now, this is important to know, both whether you are the team member or you are the team leader, right? Where are you inadvertently discounting a $10 bottle of water that would be $10 in your environment to 25 or 50 cents, right? Where are we inadvertently discounting? Same bottle, same you. You have the same brilliance. You didn't have to go out and get any other certifications or degrees or letters after your name or prove anything else. You're simply in an environment that values and acknowledges you at a much higher and clear level. Okay, now we're going to go on to enterprise strategy alignment, because this is about how well your work and your relationships are aligned to what's important to your organization, your industry, or your goals. Now, even though technically I'm referring to it as enterprise strategy alignment here, because this is one of the big 6 career success levers my clients work on, think of it just as strategic alignment, because there is a chance that the strategy you want to align with, and I hope this is always the case, is your own and less your organization's. And you'll understand what that means in a moment as well. So let's get into this. The fatal flaw here is relinquishing authority, strategy, and decision-making in your career to your boss, your organization, or an established career ladder. Like, they have to have it figured out for me. They need to sign me up for courses. They need to, and even in this case, pay for my professional development. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. Now, the reason I bring it up in this way is because they may or may not have a winning strategy. And if you are dependent on someone else having a winning strategy for you to win, you're almost always certain to lose. You cannot be dependent on someone else looking out necessarily for your best interest, because even when their heart's in the right place, their idea for you is not necessarily your idea for you. You guys with me? Their idea for you is not necessarily your idea for you. You are the CEO, chief strategist, chief decision maker in your career, your business, your life, etc. So I know you guys who know me have heard me say this. I say this all the time. The only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. I'm going to repeat that. The only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. There is a lot in that statement, because it suggests that not only are you intelligently tuned into what's important to your organization and how you fit into that, but that you have a strategic plan and that you know how your organization fits into that. Are you guys following the importance of this statement? You are centered. You are at the center. Your organization, how you contribute, your role, all of that is part of your plan. So for those of you who, for example, feel like, well, either they're underpaying me or under acknowledging me or disrespecting me, so I'm going to throttle my contributions, I'm going to pull back. I want you to think about how pulling back fits into your strategic plan. Will it help you develop the skills that you need? Will it help you develop the relationships and the influence that you need? Will it help you, frankly, just be able to add to your LinkedIn that you completed that miserable project and now have expertise in that new solution, or taking the team from A to B? Rarely does holding back and throttling your contributions actually support your strategic plan. And again, there might be an instance where it does, but rarely. In fact, I'm going to give you a quick example of when it did. Someone raised their hand in a session a couple of years ago and said, well, sometimes playing small is part of the strategy. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. And she said, well, if you're in an environment that's particularly kind of, what we'd say, toxic or caustic, etc., incredibly unwelcoming, and engaging further would be damaging, then playing small and keeping your head down while instead you redirect all of your focus to pursuing another opportunity would be the strategic choice. And I had to agree, because when you think about it in that example, it's like the princess and the pauper. Yeah, the princess and the pauper. So you didn't forget you're the princess or the prince or the monarch, or however we want to think about that. Maybe I need to adjust those words, but you get the idea, you guys. Not only do you know that you are the monarch, but you may be pretending to be less just to make your transition to what's important more straightforward. So I loved that she brought that up, because it brought clarity to this conversation, that sometimes the strategy is to play small. Sometimes the strategy is just to pay the bills while you pursue what's actually most important. So we're going to keep going, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about that and what's coming up as you're hearing me talk about this. Now, the alternative to having a strategic plan for your career, right, when you don't have one, when you don't know where you're going, is to be along for the ride wherever your organization or your next boss or the next reorg or the next pandemic or the next economic shift takes us. Now, I'm not saying that you're not still at the effect of a lot of those things, but it's very different when you know where you're headed and now know how to course correct, as opposed to when you're just playing wait and see. Wait and see is not a strategy, right? So please don't ever use those words again. We'll wait and see. Wait and see is not a strategy. It is simply a reaction. It is a non-strategy. So I want to introduce you to the results quadrant. Now, I introduced this last month. Let me see if I can make this go back up. Well, let me go the other direction. I'm always going the wrong direction with this. Okay. I introduced this last month as the mobility quadrant. Now, career mobility, again, for those of you who work in HR, you know career mobility from the side of the organization. Like, an organization will ensure that they have opportunities for people to move up, for people to move laterally, so that they can keep high quality talent within the organization, right? So organizations, good organizations, try to pay attention to career mobility. A lot of organizations do not have it down, right? So again, and I don't want you guys to out or bash organizations, but I want you to say, if you feel there's an opportunity in your organizations to be even better at career ladders and mobility and creating opportunities, I want you to go ahead and put an improve in the chat. Go ahead and type improve. If you see an opportunity, you already know there's an opportunity for your organization to improve, go ahead and type that in the chat. The reason I'm asking it this way is because you'll probably see in a couple of minutes, when people start to type in the chat, there are a lot of opportunities for organizations to still get better at this. They're constantly working at this. Constantly, like even the best companies don't have it worked out. And the reason this is so important is that you can't let your opportunity to grow, your opportunity to contribute, your opportunity to develop, your opportunity to be an example of what's possible, your opportunity to elevate others and to empower your team. You can't let that be dependent on whether your organization has it figured out, folks. It cannot be dependent on whether they worked it out, whether they already have their, let's say, DEI efforts worked out, whether they have their career ladders worked out, whether they have the best, management strategies implemented. You cannot, as an individual who is the chief strategist and decision maker in your own life and career, leave it in somebody else's or something else's or some organization's hands to define what you're able to contribute, how you're able to grow, and what legacy you're going to be able to create with your career. I know this gets really serious when I bring this up, but I want you to understand that you cannot leave in something or someone else's hands your impact, your opportunity. You cannot do any of that. So I want you to think about that for a second. Where are you waiting for your organization or someone else to get it right? Where are you waiting for your organization to get it right? I want you to stop. This doesn't mean that you don't need to get it right. I'm talking to all of us, right, in leadership roles. We need to keep figuring this out. But now, as an individual, and even as an advisor to your team members, your mentees, people you support and sponsor, I need you to understand how important it is for you and them to recognize no one has more agency in their individual careers, growth, contributions, and opportunities than they do, than you do. No one. So now, this is why the quadrant becomes so important, because it's all about you, right? This quadrant is all about you. So the Career Mobility Quadrant, just a quick recap in terms of that piece. It focuses on two dimensions: decision quality, right? Making high quality decisions, which we already talked about, understanding what's driving your decisions, whether it's being driven by what you want to make happen, or whether it's simply a reaction to feeling uncomfortable or being scared or feeling called out or not wanting to look stupid or whatever the case is. Keeping yourself safe, unfortunately, most of the time is the big mistake there when we're making decisions from that space. The other side is strategic alignment, right? Which I just talked about. That's alignment with what's most important to your organization's plan or to your plan, right? The distinction there is if you're trying to get promoted within your organization, then you want to make sure that you're aligned with their plan. And this is what it will look like, right? I wanted to break this down in terms of thoughts. When you're making high quality decisions, but you're not aligned with what's most important to your organization, meaning you're working on work that is not necessarily, right, at the center of what the organization is interested in or talking about right now, then there's a very good chance your experience is going to be one of, I'm knocking it out of the park, but no one seems to notice. Anybody? Give me a quick hand raise or a yes in the chat if that sounds familiar. I'm knocking it out of the park, but no one cares. So that is what happens when you're making high quality decisions, meaning you're putting out good work, you're hitting your numbers, you're hitting your goals, right? However, you're not aligned with what the organization considers to be most important, or what your department considers to be most important, or sometimes even what your role considers to be most important. Okay, that's one. Now, the next box to the left, this unfortunately is like the worst possible spot, but sometimes we find ourselves here. Like, not only are you not aligned with what's most important, but you're also not making high quality decisions, which means that you're constantly in reaction mode. So probably the way that you're feeling most of the time is, I'm so busy and I'm so overwhelmed and I don't even know what to do next. And there's no way I can get all this done. And all the tasks to you look the same. It just looks like a mountain of stuff waiting, trying to take more attention or more time from you. So that is when you're not aligned with what's important to your organization, your role, or your goals. And also when you're making low quality decisions. And low quality decisions mean, again, not taking a moment to understand priorities. What's most important here now and why? What's the best use of my time? Right? Having clarity around that piece. That is high quality decision making. Here we don't have it. It's gone. The next one is when we have low decision quality. So we probably still spend a good amount of time reacting. But we're working on aligned work. So you probably feel like you still feel like you don't have enough hours in the day. I think that's like a shared experience. We all feel like we don't have enough hours in the day, but it feels like people keep piling things on. And the reason it feels that way is because you're not saying no, right? You think everything is, again, it's still in that same boat as the bottom. Everything is the same and just somehow needs to get done. You're not distinguishing how and where to delegate work and where instead it requires your attention. You're not distinguishing where to say no. You're just trying to do all the work, right? You're working on important things, but you're trying to do all the work. And then finally, this upper right, hopefully goes without saying, this is where we want to be. High quality decision-making, high strategic alignment. What that means here is, yes, you may still have a lot of work. As I said, it's a default. I don't know about anybody who's saying I don't have enough to do, but we still have a lot of work, but you know where to start. You know who to engage. You know what to prioritize. In this upper right quadrant, that's also where you're going to find yourself having the most doors opened, being sought after for your contributions, and just feeling like there are opportunities coming, even when you're not seeking them out. When you're in this upper right quadrant, this is also where you hold the most influence. We're going to talk about that as well. Oh, let me see. So the next step in this is career mobility. Now, your career mobility, again, this is where you have a lot more opportunities, upper right. And I'm going to touch on these briefly. I talked about these at the boot camp last month, but when you have high quality decision making and you're doing a pretty good job in the work you're supposed to be doing, right down here, maybe not completely aligned with what's important to the organization, you're probably seeing some movement in your career, some opportunities, but it's very slow. You're seeing other people get promoted ahead of you. Now, when you're kind of in this corner over here that nobody wants to be in, right? At a minimum, if you can't figure out the strategic alignment, at a minimum, you can start applying higher quality decision-making here. But if you happen to be in this area here, you will find that you are the first out and your career is very slow moving, meaning it's probably not moving at all. You are the first out, very slow moving. When you're better aligned, even though you're still kind of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, there might be starts and stops, right? Depending on the projects you're working on, you'll get some acknowledgement. There will be inconsistent growth, but at least there's some growth. So are you guys starting to see how this all starts to pull together? I want to make sure you start dropping questions in the chat that you want me to address in a bit, but I want you to see how this all pulls together, because I also want you to see that this quadrant, even though I introduced it as a career mobility quadrant, it really is a results quadrant. So if it's influence you're looking for, and you're making low quality decisions, it likely means that you have limited exposure to key decision makers and are probably unaware of who they even are, right? Low quality decisions and low strategic alignment. You don't even know who the decision makers are. You don't even know who the influencers are in your environment. When you go to high quality decision making, you might have limited access or exposure to the decision makers, but you actually might be seeking opportunities to nurture those relationships, right? You're seeking those opportunities. And then at the top here, where you have low quality decision making, but you actually are aligned with what's important to the organization. What I mean by that is you might happen to be working on a project that's a high priority initiative. You might be working on something that's on the enterprise roadmap, something that's actually of importance to your department, organization, or team. So you have opportunity and you have exposure to those influential relationships, but you're not necessarily nurturing them. And again, this typically happens because you're also not making good decisions about how best to invest your time and effort. right? So again, chicken with the head cut off, that's here. That's working up here. And then finally, when you're in the upper right, this is where you actually have an influence plan, and you know what that means. You're intentionally nurturing and leveraging key relationships. You understand how the relationships work together, how decisions get made in your environment, how opportunities get created, and the relationships that you nurture help bring those to fruition for you. Let's see how many more of these. Oh, I wanted to throw this one. I threw this one in at the last minute because I had somebody reach out to me. Well, how does this work if you're a business owner? And the results quadrant works in any case when you're a business owner, right? So let's say that we're centering your business growth. Okay, so for those of you who are entrepreneurs, the way this looks, and I can speak to this so well, being an entrepreneur myself, but the way this works is that when you are making high quality decisions and you're aligned with what's most important to the growth of your organization, then you recognize the critical activities and you invest or delegate as appropriate. But what that means, the alternatives here, which again, I'm very familiar with as well, is that you might treat all tasks as equal. And you might even hide from things that you know you should be doing, but don't like to do, right? And those might be things like accounting. They might be client surveys. They might be the working out your follow-up processes. It might be making more offers, right? It might be hiring the right help or creating systems so that you can hire help, or hiring help to create systems, whatever the case is. But I wanted to touch on this one briefly because where you're going to spend your time and attention when you're making high quality decisions and aligned with what matters most for your business, right? And for your organization, for your church, for your community group, whatever the case is. When you're aligned with what's most important and strategically saying yes and no, that's where you're going to see the biggest growth and the most intentional results. So I won't spend much more time on this, but you guys can kind of review the other boxes as well. So that was it. We talked about enterprise strategy alignment, high quality decision making. Now I want to talk to you about, like, that was the bulk of the masterclass. And I want to talk to you about how we make this work in my programs and how I invite you to see this as working in yours, right? So I want to give you an opportunity to start working on this right away. So definitely make sure that you are taking notes on this. And sorry, I have some weird spot in my window shining in my face. Hopefully that's not messing anything up on your end. But in any case, intentional leadership, being strategic, being intentional, it requires mastery. And I maintain that there are 3 pillars of mastery, and that's what we focus on in my organization, right? 3 pillars of mastery in my organization, and as it relates to developing leaders. The first one is self-mastery, right? This one is about knowing yourself. And I know that sounds so straightforward, but I need you to understand the importance of this. When you don't know yourself, you don't understand your values, you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, you don't understand why it feels like you're working really hard, but you're not seeing any of the results. You don't understand why you feel so triggered by certain people, and you have all these blind spots, right? And you're walking into situations ill-prepared, often because you don't have that level of self-mastery. Again, if you find yourself triggered, if you find yourself wondering why you're doing what you're doing, if you find that you don't know kind of what's next or what's most important, there's a good chance that where you need to focus is self-mastery. This is also where you focus on your self-confidence. Hold on, let me see if I can fix this. Let me stay a little closer and see if I can keep that shine out of my face. This is where you focus on your self-confidence. This is where you focus on understanding what's most important to you. This is where you clear away any of the baggage that from past experiences that you're still bringing with you, but that actually don't serve you. So that's self-mastery. The next pillar is role mastery. You need to have role mastery. Self-mastery has to come first, because otherwise role mastery just looks like pretending. But let me explain what role mastery is. Role mastery is understanding what's most important to success in your role. So we just spent time talking about that, right? High strategic alignment, having clarity on what's most important for your role or that for your goal. Role mastery means that you understand what key competency to focus on for yourself, right? Just one or two, not a slew of things you say that you want to address. Role mastery means that you understand what the organization's actual values and priorities are versus what the organization says they value and prioritize. Now, again, they're not trying to throw you for a loop. It's simply the reality that what an organization says they value is often aspirational. What an organization actually values is typically reflected by where they invest their time, where they invest their attention and dollars, and who they promote. Okay? That is how you distinguish what your organization actually values. Where are they investing dollars? Where are they investing time and attention? And who are they promoting? That's it. You don't really need to look at much else. Okay, I want to keep this super simple. So pay attention to what your organization, department, or team is paying attention to. Now, what I want to say here is the intention is to not them try to get them to pay attention to what you're doing. It's to allow that awareness and knowledge and clarity to inform what you decide to do next. What's going to make the most sense? Now that you have clarity that these are either the characteristics or the focuses that the organization is investing in, what do I want that to mean for me? How do I want that to inform my next steps? You guys with me? So give me a quick yes. Are you guys with me? And then goal mastery. Now, usually say here, know your goal, but I want to be more specific and say, know your plan. Meaning you have a strategic plan for your career. Meaning that you're clear about who you want to be as a leader and how you want to show up. And in fact, you'll notice we do this later, not in the space of self-mastery, because when we're pursuing self-mastery, we're still getting clear on our blind spots. We're still reacting and responding to all this socialization around pursuing the gold stickers, so much so that you can't clearly articulate what you actually want, what you want to make happen, what's most important to you and why. So that's why we do this later on, because we know at this point you've cleared away some of that muck and some of that baggage and can make a clear decision and distinction and articulate who you are as a leader, what you're trying to accomplish, and clarity about what that future looks like and how to help cascade that and align your teams with that as well. So here is another way to look at this. I'm going to bring it up very quickly, because what I do in the program, in the Intentional Leadership Program, which of course I hope all of you decide to join, but what we do in the program is we focus entirely on things that you control. It's entirely on things that you control. And they're know yourself, know your role, know your goal or your plan. We focus entirely on what you control. So let me see. I'm looking at questions here. What if you don't know what's important to your company because they don't know what's important? Again, the intention here is not to try to get them to fix what's important, right? Because you don't control that necessarily. In most cases, we don't control that. But what is important here is for you to decide how you're going to allow that to inform what you do next, what decisions you make, and what path you decide to pursue, right? This applies no matter what level you're in, but I hope you guys are understanding that clarity, right? I hope you're understanding that and seeing that clearly. It's so incredibly important that you understand that the intention is to have clarity and make intelligent, high quality decisions aligned with what's most important to you. The intention is not to now convince. That said, I do have things, for example, you'll see on the plan, you can see my pointer, I'm pointing to an influence plan. In my program, we create an influence plan because if you decide you want to stay in your organization or grow on your board or whatever the case happens to be, get higher level clients, you do need to create an influence plan. You need to understand which relationships to nurture to open those doors, which coffee chats to request, which informational interviews to request. Yes? So that is very strategic, and that's something that you control. You control working and creating an influence plan. Okay, let me go on. So I wanted you guys to have that quick snapshot. I mentioned the success levers earlier. That's one of the areas I work on with the teams, and that strategic alignment and high quality decision-making quadrant is aligned with those success levers as well. So self-mastery, role mastery, leadership goal mastery, all of this with the end of making high quality decisions across the board for your team, for your immediate results, your future next steps, etc. But the bottom line is that when you understand what actually moves the needle, which is what we get here in role mastery, actually understanding what moves the needle of success in whatever it is you say is most important, once you've created those leading indicators and are working on what's most important and seeing consistent effort towards what you're trying to make happen, your influence grows, your results grow, your frustration diminishes. And I'll be frank, it almost doesn't matter whether your boss or your organization or anything else have done anything different. It doesn't matter. It's not dependent on your organization saying, oh, we finally see you now. It is more dependent on you saying, this is what I know I want to accomplish. These are the activities I'm focusing on to get there. And this is what my failure plan and my mitigation strategies are. It's also incredibly important. So I want to give you the opportunity. Some of you, you've heard how it is that we do this in the program. I went through that rather quickly because I wanted to make sure we could end on time. But I want to give you an invitation to start working on this right now, like literally right now, because every single day, every day that you're a passenger in your own career, that you're kind of along for the ride, every day that you are in wait and see mode is another day that you are not growing. It's another day that you're not contributing top of license, as I like to say. It's another day that you are not advocating effectively for your team. It's another day that you are not asking the important questions. Right? It's another day that you don't know how to begin to course correct when yet something else changes in the environment, right? And it's another day that you have that adversarial relationship with these constant changes. It's another day that you continue to be triggered and give up, your own peace of mind being at work every day. It's another day that you have the Sunday night blues and just cannot wait to leave your organization. But here's what I have to tell you about that. Even when we transition roles, when we transition companies, what is constant? We are constant. So those same triggers will show up. And the worst part yet is that when you didn't address them, when they're still sitting in your blind spots over here, you're going to start to attribute that trigger to people in your new environment. You're going to start to attribute them everywhere. You're going to start to see the same bad actors in the new environment. Why? Because your blind spots don't allow you to disconnect, right, that individual's behavior from how things are in an environment. So oftentimes people will change organizations, and I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I want you to understand this. People will change circumstances, without changing their thinking, without having that self-mastery, and they'll create the same results. And we often, this is another example, another funny example where you can see this all the time. You can see this all the time. You either see somebody on a professional level who keeps bouncing from role to role and is equally dissatisfied. You might have a friend like that who's equally dissatisfied in every role. It doesn't matter what organization, what role, or what title they have. Does that sound familiar to anybody? You have a friend, colleague, or maybe it's even you who has kind of been in several different roles, but has the same complaint in all the different roles. And this silly example I like to give, but that's all too true. So we all have the good friend who leaves one relationship with the partner because the partner has all of these flaws and all these problems, and there are all these things going on with this partner, only to immediately get into another relationship with another person with the identical flaw, only in a different body. Anybody see that? So they go from one relationship to the next, and the relationship looks nearly identical because they're making the exact same decisions over and over and over again, over and over and over again. I love that. Morgan, you have a 28-month shelf life. Yeah, I hear you. And that is something that's avoidable. That is something that we can do. That is something that you can manage and master so that your ability to make an impact and be effective in your environment is not dependent on, it's not driven by whatever happened in the past, but rather what you're actually trying to create, which bottom line is what strategy is all about. And you guys, the reason I love strategy and being strategic is because you get to make decisions in advance. When you make decisions in advance, you make decisions with your prefrontal cortex, the best part of your brain. That's all the science I'm going to talk about today, but you make decisions with the best part of your brain. When you make decisions as a reaction, you are not using that part of your brain. Right? You're not using that part of your brain. So why not bring your best quality thinking to your career? The more decisions you make in advance, right, including failure planning, right, including obstacle management, the more decisions you make in advance, the higher quality outcomes you're going to continue to have. So the intentional leadership program, again, you can do this on your own. Some of you already know you're running off, you're going to start applying this immediately. But some of you already know that you want to be in the structured container. It's a 3-month program. We're starting very soon. So the kickoff weekend is January 21st and 22nd. If I'm saying the right days, Saturday and Sunday, or 20th and 21st. I might have those days mixed, but you guys will know. It is a 3-month leadership accelerator program. It's a group coaching program. But here's the thing. It's not just a group coaching program. It includes 6 one-on-one private coaching sessions. And what's really most important, right, even setting aside the one-on-one coaching sessions, is that you're focusing on the actions and decisions that you control. We're not focusing on changing someone else. We're not focusing on trying to get someone to be more inclusive or more nice or more fair. We're focusing on what you actually control. And for those of you who you go to the page, go to bridgewellpro.com, you decide to sign up. When you sign up today, you're also getting the $1,000 career services package. And that's not by me. That is by a certified professional resume writer. I don't do that. But they will create your resume for you, your LinkedIn profile, and you'll have a 2-session interview prep package so that you have an opportunity to be ready for your next role. But here's the thing, even if you're not job searching, you want to take advantage of that interview prep package because it brings you clarity and understanding and awareness about how you're showing up in those environments. Right? It gives you an opportunity to get feedback from a professional interviewer on how best to show up. Whether what you're doing is showing up to pitch your next big idea, you're showing up to engage new prospective board members, whatever the case might be. But it's a fantastic opportunity to have somebody there just for you, one-on-one, helping you distinguish what the next steps are to take. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I want to make sure that I can answer questions. I know we're at the top of the hour right now. I will stay for any questions that you have. They don't have to be specifically about the program. They can be about any of what we covered today. They can be about any of what we covered today. And I'm going back to look through some of your questions. Please take action. Whether you decide to join the program or not, I want you to take action on your own. Distinguish your next best action. How can you get more clear about what's most important within your organization? How can you give your team members more clarity about what's most important? See, when we feel like our work isn't landing, it's because we've taken our eyes off of understanding what is actually the priority in the organization. We've taken our eyes off of the priority in the organization. So let me see. Let me put that up there because I'm going to turn this off so that I can answer any questions that you have. So let's see what questions are still rolling in. Oh, I just lost your comments. Here we go. And thank you, Lanice. Okay, I think Tracy already addressed your question. And Myra, thank you for being here. I'm glad it was insightful. I'm glad it's helpful. And there is a lot to digest. I absolutely agree. And just so you know, in the program, it is very digestible and we do it step by step and you do it in the company of other leaders in addition to your one-on-one sessions. So I think I've addressed the questions as we went, but if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them here. Because here's the thing, let me see if I can, and for those of you who actually want to sit and have a conversation before enrolling, let me go ahead and put this on the screen. While I do this, does that work? There we go. I'm going to put that on the screen. You can feel free to take a shot of that or go to bridgewellpro.com/consult and you can schedule time to connect with me. I don't think there are any appointments for today, so you would not be connecting with me today, but you can schedule a strategy session and we can have that conversation. Because if you're on the fence and you're thinking this is something that could help me, I want to understand and help you understand what is in the way of you actually making the decision, of you actually investing in yourself and what it is that you're trying to make happen and prioritizing that as opposed to continuing to react to what's not working in the environment. So I want to, let me see if I thought I brought it back up here. Sorry, I'm looking for a specific slide because I wanted to see if we got to this. So here was the promise when we started. And I want to hear from you guys who are still here. I want you guys to actually answer the questions now about the strategies for this. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Share screen. Okay, here it is. So here was the promise for today. So let's go through this one by one, right? Let's go through this. Whoever's still on the line, I want you guys to contribute because I know that you learned something in the process. So I know you know the answers to this. How can you distinguish if you're doing the right work versus just more work? So how can you distinguish if you're doing the right work versus just more work? And when I see you guys answer these questions in the chat, and feel free to answer any one that comes to mind for you. How can you understand how to be more strategic about what you work on and what you delegate? How can you understand how to be more strategic about what you keep and what you farm out? Oh, I just left the page again. There we go. Okay. Your influence plan. Do you know how to create, at least have an idea of how to create an influence plan? Let's see. I'm starting to see some comments come in, but I want to give you guys a couple seconds. Align yourself and your teams to better prioritize your effort. Do you know how to do that now, or how to begin? Because the conversation we had today actually answers all of these. So I want to see if you understand how to begin. And if you didn't get all of these answers, I want you to go ahead and watch the replay. Just rewatch it. And then how to finally make your contributions and accomplishments count so that they're noticed. Remember the bottle of water, right? Same bottle of water, 25 to 50 cents at the store, a couple of dollars at the restaurant, $6 or so at the movie theater, and $10 plus when you're at an amusement park. Same you, different level of value in a different environment, right? But the bottle of water is not going to sit there and argue with someone at the supermarket that they're worth $10 at Disneyland. That bottle of water is instead going to take that information into account and decide to work towards getting to Disneyland. So let's see. Some good answers are coming in here. Okay. So actually, here's a question. Would this course help me decide what next degree to study to enhance my career progress? Okay, so I'm going to give you a short answer to that, Tamara. Yes, because you're going to have clarity about what you want to do next in your career. But I do want to be clear with you, because I did not say this earlier, and that is my apology. This program is actually for people who have at least 10 years of professional work experience, because the type of conversations we have in the group is at a slightly different level than if it's for, let's say, someone right out of school. It doesn't mean you wouldn't get value out of it. It just simply means that the conversations are focused and tailored to people with more substantial years of experience. Now, if you already have the 10 plus years of professional work experience and you're thinking you want to get another degree, then yes, you will have clarity, because you will distinguish whether and how that degree fits into your strategic plan for your career. Yes? And let me know. You can drop me a note and let me know if that answers your question. But you will distinguish whether and how it fits into your strategic plan for your career, as opposed to thinking it's simply a default or a next step, but that you're not entirely clear how it's going to add value to you and your intentions. Okay, and let's see. And Tracy, I think you were answering one of the questions as well. Understanding you're doing the right work by being strategic about what you're focusing on. Yes, absolutely. Let's see, about understanding how to be more strategic about what you work on and what you delegate, knowing your role and your goal. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see, creating an influence plan. Yes, and I know I didn't break that down into pieces, but I think you understand distinguishing who the decision makers are in the environment, and then distinguishing how to nurture that, how to create opportunities to connect, understand what's within their set of concerns, understand how what you do connects to their set of concerns. Right? We break that all down within the program, but you can already see how to walk away today and make that work for yourself. Let's see. And Tamara, okay, great. I'm glad that you got the answer. And let me go back. And you said, let's see, I'm not sure who this is, but will you be sending the information? If you are on my list already, then I am certain that you will get, at a minimum, the replay link, even if you didn't register. And if not, go ahead and register, even though it's after the fact, and you'll be on the list and you'll receive all the information. But in the meantime, I invite you guys to consider what next steps you're taking. I want you to consider how you can make high quality decisions. I want you to consider how your next steps can be informed by what you're trying to make happen versus by what you're reacting to and by what's not working. And so I have loved being with you today. I cannot wait to see you inside the program. And for those of you who joined today and I did not mention this too much because I didn't want to spend too much time on that. But for those of you who are joining today, just know you get an extra 30-minute welcome session with me. So while you'll be working with one of my coaches for your one-on-ones, you will get a 30-minute welcome and strategy session with me if you join today. So anyone joining today is getting that session. We're still a relatively small group, so I can't wait to welcome you in. Okay, thank you so much. Go out there and lead. Bye-bye.